Hello, everyone. Welcome to Spirit Switchboard. I am your host, Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, and you are listening to us live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 and in the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM out of New Orleans. And you know what? I just sped through that so quickly. UFO Paranormal and the United Public Radio Network. So thank you so much to both of them. Last week, I'm really sorry that I didn't get to be here. Last week, I was so under the weather. I still am a little bit this week, so you kind of get that raspy voice this week. But I'm happy to be back today for sure. But I hope you enjoyed the replay with Joni Templeton Skinner. And Joni has agreed to come back on. So she's going to be back on Valentine's Day for a special Valentine's Day segment. Hi, Mel. Thanks for being here. And Sue Nato. So Joni Templeton Skinner is my astrology friend. She has True Crime Beyond, Mysteries Beyond the Veil with the Riff Nation Network. And Sue Nato is a numerologist. So they're going to be coming on for a special Valentine's segment, which is super exciting. If you are new here, thank you for being here. If you have followed me for a while, thank you so much for your support. My name is Carrie Lynn Shellhorn. I am a psychic medium based out of Guelph, Ontario, Canada. You can follow along on my website. I have a couple of courses that are coming up, a mediumship course, and I haven't taught the mediumship course in quite a while, so I'm very, very excited about doing that. It is going to be a 3-part course where we're building your skills. And at the end of that, afterwards, you'll have an opportunity for one-on-one mentorship after those 3 courses. I have what course? So when people ask me about who their spirit guides are, it kind of, I tell people Bob, everybody's spirit guide's name is Bob, because it's up to teaching you, right? Teaching you guys how to figure out who your spirit guides are and tap into them. And I love teaching. So I know that there's a lot of new and exciting things that are happening in the world. And I know from my own experiencing guides that are ETs and Fae and dragons. So the who's your otherworldly Bob? Who's your spirit guide from an interdimensional aspect is the course that's coming up February 17th. So all of those things, the newsletter is going out tomorrow. If you go to the website, it's carrieLynnShellhorn.com. Sign up for the newsletter. You get all the heads up of who's going to be on Spirit Switchboard for the upcoming month and all the upcoming events, all those sort of fun that are happening. And I promise that I am so ADHD and all the D's, the newsletter only goes out once a month. And sometimes it doesn't always go out on the first, but I try really hard. Thank you so much, Denise, Julie, Joanne, Kathy. Thank you for being here. Let me just switch some things up. So the guest that I have on today, it's a great show coming back because I'm just hanging out with a friend. I got to meet at the Lake Superior Paranormal Convention in Thunder Bay. Gail and Mel Willis are the organizers of that. The Paracon this year will be October 16th, 17th, 18th. It's going to be a lot of fun. My guest today is going to be back. I'll be back. I hope that we get to see you there. This is where I got to meet Kim. So my guest today is Kimberly Christine of Duluth Ghost Tours. She is a paranormal researcher, teacher, mentor, Reiki master. You wear so many hats, Kim. Thank you for agreeing to come on to the show.
Thank you for having me. This is going to be so exciting to be able to sit and chat all things weird and spooky here with you.
Right. And I was thinking that coming on the show, this is probably the most time, even though we were at the convention together, we didn't really see each other much because we were doing our own things. Right. This is going to be the longest that we've sat to talk with each other.
Yeah, right. The breakfast we had some time, and that was like more intimate time, but yeah, otherwise than that, the convention was crazy.
Yeah. It's going to be super fun. Hi, Michelle. Thank you for being here. Stephen Wojo, thank you for being here. So Stephen has been on the show as a guest. He is part of Bigfoot Banter with Richie B. He is co-host of that podcast. They have lots of fun and exciting things going on. So please look them up and watch and follow all the exciting things that they have going on.
I need to take notes on those.
Yes, and through Stephen, through Stephen and Richie, I met Jason Kenzie. Jason Kenzie does all these big, amazing Bigfoot documentaries. He's out of BC, and Jason Kenzie is going to be at the Paranormal Convention in Thunder Bay this year as well too. So,
were they there last year?
No, he'll be new this year. So that's pretty exciting as well too. So we're going to have, some exciting Sasquatch stuff going on in Thunder Bay this year.
Good.
Hi, Michelle Wilfong. Thank you for being here. So I am not 100% better, but thank you for asking, Stephen. I took some honey and tea, and hopefully my throat will stay okay for our time together. But we're gonna roll with it today.
We can talk a lot, so if you need to take a break, my throat is like. Always.
So your background is phenomenal. Oh, here, I'm going to stick this up for you, Steve. Stick this up for you, Wojo. Banter with Richie B on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. There is a website as well, too, where you can find all their new merch, so you can buy the merch.
Awesome.
And I need to get it if I'm going to promote you. I'm going to have to start wearing your merch, Wojo.
Yeah, and I need
weird and wonderful chats are always awesome. I agree. Your background is so varied and fascinating. Can you? I did not even cover all of the hats that you wear. So can you give us a little bit of your background for those people that are just meeting you for the first time?
Sure. I mean, it's like layers. It goes that high, I tell people.
Layers are good.
It's
layers make a rich story.
Major onion, right? So originally my career was a hairdresser. I did that 4 years. Wasn't enough. I went back to college, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to study marine biology. I wanted to study whales. I wanted to do oceanography and all that wonderful stuff. But science was failing me at I just turned 21. So I wasn't doing very well in biology. Biology hit me at a different level. And I needed work study. And lo and behold, the university that I was going to in Superior, Wisconsin, which is literally just like 5 miles over the bridge, they said, well, we could use, help in the theater department. And we see that you're an ex-hairdresser. Would you like to do some work studying the theater? And I'm like, sure. And they said, well, would you be interested in building sets? And I'm like, I could do that because I actually took a wood shop class. So I was helping build sets and I was doing some hair, a little bit of costumes, but it wasn't enough. They didn't have a really intensive program. So eventually I moved to Northern California and I finished up my master's degree. They had film classes there, costume classes, makeup classes. It was like massive. So I got my MFA degree up in California State Humboldt, moved to Vegas and started working for Cirque du Soleil and Blue Man Group. So that was like a huge cultural eye-opener because I was working with people from all over the world.
Amazing.
And it was so awesome. I was there for about 7 years, and after about a promotion in the 3rd year, I started to get a lot of overuse injuries. and I did a lot of self-healing, and I met my ex-husband at the time, who was from India, and he was a filmmaker. So it just so happened I traveled to India a lot, and I got into health and wellness and Ayurveda and a lot of that ancient type of mysticism, and really took a dive into a whole new culture. And we ended up, I kind of changed my career into health and wellness at that time. And that was right around when I was, getting into spooky stuff, big fan of the X-Files. That was really where I was sold, that
So
was.
you weren't into like Stephen King or ghosty stuff as a kid?
Yes, I was. I'm sorry I didn't bring that up. I was an only child. So I was with my imagination a lot. I played on my own. I went into, the like the woods and the rivers and the streams, and I would be in my own imagination. And yeah, I had a whole Stephen King collection of books, and I loved to watch spooky stuff. I loved fear. I don't know what it was about being scared, right? And I loved to story tell, around the campfire, when we were young, and tell spooky stories just off the fly. But yeah, so, then when we were relocated to Los Angeles, we're there for about a year and a half for his career. And then we moved for his career to Savannah, Georgia. And that's where it started for me.
Amazing.
Savannah, it's such a haunted city. And everywhere I worked, there was some story, there was hauntings. And it just so happened that I ended up being part of a background actor for Ghost Adventures for the Gribble House. And, at that time, I couldn't do anything in costumes. There really wasn't any school that was hiring, and a lot of the films were up in Atlanta at that time. But when the students found out that I was a special makeup effects artist, I was doing a lot of blood and gore for their short films.
I'm just going to pop in here. Howie, so Howie Odell, thank you for being here. Howie, thank you so much for being such a huge supporter of our network. Howie is the director of the Rift Nation Network, has a show called The Orion Effect on Sunday nights. They have all kinds of great shows. Please check out their network as well too. You are such a great friend to all of us. So Howie, when you mentioned Savannah, Georgia, he's like, Savannah, super excited. And he is asking, have you heard of Emma Kelly?
Emma Kelly, I have not. Is she a spirit per se, or like a female psychic, or like a person of interest that's out there?
Hi, Tammy. Thank you for being here. And Judy Abrams, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here.
First timer.
Mm-hmm. I have not been to Savannah, Georgia.
Oh.
I have heard lots about it. If you have a favorite story, things that may have happened, or a place, Howie is sharing she was the lady of 1,000 songs in Savannah.
Oh. It doesn't sound, it sounds familiar. There's so much there. When I ended up working at a property called the Gribble House, it was part of the Old Town Trolley. So if any of you have heard of Old Town Trolley in San Diego, in Florida, Savannah, it's in a few major cities, but Old Town Trolley, I believe, started in Savannah. And they did all these different trolley tours, and they ended up having this giant warehouse. And the people that were working there at night on the trolleys would see things, right? They would see shadows, things would be moving, they would get spooked. And, they brought investigators in, and they said, yep, the place is haunted. And then, of course, they did some deeper research, and they found out that that property was on like some super energetic grounds. Like, for one, there was a triple X murder that occurred in a house that was replaced by this huge warehouse. And then there was a mass burial just across the street from the Revolutionary War soldiers. And then there was a slave quarters in that property as well. So there was a ton of activity. Eventually, Old Town Trolley outgrew the garage. So they moved to a different location, but the office still stayed there. And what they did was then they used that warehouse for VIP parking for people to park inside the garage to get out of the humid and the heat when they were taking tours on the trolley. So that meant at nighttime, like 8 o'clock at night when trolleys were all done, the property was completely empty. So what they decided to do was to do a paranormal investigation / tour. So that is when I started working there. So I was a guide, and the owners, interviewed me. First, it was the manager that interviewed me, but then the owner interviewed me, and he wanted to make sure I was like psychologically okay to work in the property, because he said, right?
But that yes, I find that interesting though. Like, how do you psychologically evaluate people who are,
I know, and because I had a master's degree, the manager, she also had a master's degree, and she was in fashion. So it was like, hey, we connected, right? She's like,
yeah,
she was like, you're good,
that's
but
awesome.
the owner had to go through, and he was telling me, a lot of people will have bad dreams and nightmares. They're afraid of bringing things home. I'm like, I love my bad dreams. They're interesting stories,
Yeah.
So
Howie is adding in, add in the pirates and all the Shanghai that took place along the Civil War, the history of the Manivera, the Witch of Savannah, and he's also adding he loves the Mercer House.
Oh yes, there's there's a pirate house there too, a pink house. The Girl Scouts, Julie, I can't think of her, but that also has a haunted property. Of course, we know the Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil was out there. And then there's the infamous statue of the little girl Gracie. The cemetery that is in the middle of the city.
You have to remember, I know nothing.
Oh my God.
It's all new for me.
There's so much. So I worked
you got hired.
Yeah. So we got to bring people in to the property. We talked about the history. And then what we did was we turned the lights on in this warehouse and brought them back and showed them, okay, these are all the hot spots. And then we came back and showed them all the paranormal equipment. And this is how you use it, right? So then we brought them back out into the warehouse with the lights out. And then they all split up into groups. So me and another one of the guides, we would just kind of walk around and check on them to make sure everything's okay. Like, are you hearing something? Are you not afraid? Different things like that. And, the interesting thing is in the room where it was the slave quarters, as per African Americans, right, they get very superstitious. And it's really hard for them to go into that room. And I had a family that got spooked. They left the tour. So people, they feel that energy, and, they come in having these different thoughts. But then, when you're in that moment, the Triple X murder property. Oh, go ahead.
Well, at nighttime, the lights off, it's sensory. It affects you in such a different sensory sort of way. And depending on your group, you could energetically be picking up on energies that other people are bringing. It's always so different at nighttime, like, and in
100%.
and in the dark. For sure.
Yeah. The area where the Triple X murder occurred. So a guy came in to a house of 3 women. It was like a mother, a sister, an aunt. They were like all related. And he cut them up with an axe. Right. And they still to this day are not sure who it was. Like, the guy got off, and they had their accusations, who it possibly could have been, maybe a straggler kind of coming through. But that area was actually where the storage unit was, where they kept all their supplies. And we would bring people in the hallway, and we would come and check on them. And I will never forget walking back there and checking on the group, because a lot of times what people will do when they're doing an investigation on a tour, they'll just sit there and listen to the spirit box. They won't ask questions. They're afraid to talk. And I tell them, act like you're meeting a friend, somebody for the first time. You're going to ask them like, hey, where are you from? What do ask them these questions, keeping a conversation with them. Otherwise you are the worst date ever, So I walked in and I could hear the SB7 kind of scrolling, right, through the channels and sweeping. And I asked everybody, how's everyone doing back here? And they're like, yeah, okay. Through the spirit box, a female spirit voice came out and said, bitch. And I went, well, looks like you guys are doing fine. I'll let you be. I interrupted something. I'll leave you guys alone. Sorry.
Yeah. It's always interesting when they swear, when they get salty. It's super interesting. And it always makes me question why? Is it a particular person? Is it the way that they, bad day, not wanting to be bothered? Did you get people to introduce themselves? So, that they would introduce themselves to the spirits and say thanks, all that kind of fun stuff.
And, and sometimes people are afraid. They're like, I don't want to talk. And I'm like, it's okay. Pass it on to the next person. Then you don't have to talk if you don't want to, and those are usually the ones that spirits will try to like harass them and get to them, the most.
Yeah. It's like they smell fear.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So another part of,
and you ask questions similar to me, like, because when we were at the museum, I am like, what's your favorite ice cream? Like just everything and anything, because if we're trying to get to know people, right? We're trying to know their stories. So, if we haven't hit the right question, do they like being asked questions? Like, do they
instead of usual, when did you die?
The same stuff over and over again.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, ask other things. So that you're getting a unique answer and response to your question. I love asking, what does it feel like on the other side? I want to know, what are they sensing? And I've heard bizarre, dreams, peaceful, lonely, cold. Those are the 5 answers that I've heard that have stood out the most. The bizarre and dreams were amazing though.
And then it makes you question, like, is where they are the reality and we're in some kind of matrixy thing. There's so many different ways to go with that, right? Hi, Mish. Thank you for being here. And Mish is adding, like a dog smells fear. I'm not a dog lover, and they always come to me. Yes. Serena White, thank you for being here. The way that we ask questions and relaxing and just asking questions and then feeling okay to segue off whatever the response is. Like when they give you the response.
And they enjoy having the normal conversation, especially when, so I also, but besides Savannah, once we left, we moved to Los Angeles. And that was when I started my own ghost tour. So I was on Hollywood Boulevard as the City of Dark Angels tours. And I would walk along Hollywood Boulevard and, that was probably the most active I've ever had from all the EVPs. And I'll never forget asking through the SB7, any spirits here have a pet? And what was it? And I shit you not, this little boy came through and said, Beagle. Not once, but twice. And then again, like maybe 30 seconds later, he said, Beagle, again, a second time. And it was like, oh my gosh. And it's those moments where you're like, damn it, I wasn't recording.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's always good, to have things recorded, but at the same time, we're doing it so that we can have a personal experience, and our personal experiences count towards things, and we need to honor that as well too, and not get so hung up on having it on camera, but having it recorded would be good. But
Yeah.
I'm that overthinker having it recorded. I'm like, I'm not having it recorded from this angle with a second camera from that angle and on this recorder to make sure it's all good. I overthink that way then.
Yeah. Well, then it's like you have all this footage and it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, if I would have recorded every tour, oh geez, and then having to spend time and go through and listen to it and find, those
I'm horrible.
few words. It's like, oh man, it's
horrible.
just, it's fine if, if you've got like a few people, doing it and there's one person that loves doing audio. It's like, here you go, take that file and just pick out the good stuff and then post it up on social media listen what we got,
Yeah.
So
it is great to have the proof too.
Yeah, it is. It is. And
it is.
Like, damn it, I wasn't recording.
Howie, I did almost say squirrel. So I'm glad that you know me really well. And we will remember to get you to tell us the story of Minerva. I'm trying to keep track. I'm writing notes. I am writing notes. Los Angeles is a whole, it's a lot. It is a lot.
And even though it was like started in like the 1920, you go a little bit further back. Whereas Savannah, you had like late 1600s, early 1700s. You have hundreds of years. LA, it was like just barely 100 years old. Now, but it was just the amount of people and the energy and everything that was going on, and all California or bust. So there was all of that, and
there's tragic stories, and it's theater. Theater is all of the emotions, the highs and lows, and the expectations, and addictions and debauchery. All of
Sin. That. right.
Yep.
So that was probably the most exciting tour that I had done. When I first started the tour, I was on Groupon and Living Social trying to get people to come and take the tour. I was selling tickets for like $19 on Groupon. Normally, I think I was charging $25 at that time. And this was in 2014. But
oh my gosh, I think you must have been doing tours when I went to Los Angeles then.
Oh, yeah.
You must have been doing tours, and I'm sorry that I missed you.
Yeah, I was there from 2014 to 2017. I did about 3
hours. I would have been. I cried, actually. I cried and I called home going, they're all crazy here. I'm from Northern Ontario, grew up like in the middle of nowhere. And I was down there, and I was a deer in headlight.
Yeah.
It was a deer in headlights for sure.
And the headlights are all over.
Headlights are all over.
Oh man, yeah, it was
all over. Old Town San Diego was super fun for me. Like Whaley House, going in and around that that section. Howie is asking when you were in Savannah.
Savannah, I was there from 2013 to 2014. So I was there for a year. And, it got me a good opportunity to do special effects for some student films. There was one that ended up winning an award, and it was actually it was like a don't text and drive campaign. And so I did the makeup effects for that, and it had aired on TV. I swear it was probably 7 years, if not, that it was like late night, because it was bloody. And it was like, this girl was texting and driving her boyfriend, and, she grabbed into a wall and her phone got like stuck into her gut, and her nose busted and broke. And then she was in like the underworld with all these other people who died of like electrocution and drowning. And she's like, why am I here? What's going on? Oh my God, I don't get service down here. I mean, it was really cute and funny, but yeah, I'm surprised how long that ran, because I'll never forget when I was in LA, even after the third year of that, I had still seen it on TV at night, and it was like, wow. It's called Project Yellow Light. So that was fun. But
Howie has lots of questions for you. Howie, I'm going to introduce you guys and connect you guys, so you can have Kim on the Orion Effect.
Nice.
Yeah. He was asking about Savannah Paranormal, if you had connected with them.
No, I haven't. So at the time when I was there, so Savannah, there's so much history. And a town population that was like 55,000, they had about 87 different tours that were running in this small town. And half of them were haunted tours. So when you think that 40 tours were ghost tours, and it was either going through properties, it was haunted pub crawls, it was hearse tours, it was buggy tours, it was cemetery tours. I mean, it was so oversaturated.
There's probably voodoo tours as
well.
my
gosh, yes. Yeah. So I went to like the city tourism board, and all of the flyers that they have, I grabbed the flyers just about from every single tour at that time. I'm like, okay, here's my research. So
I've learned it can be irritating when people copy the things that you've worked hard to do and create. At the same time, it doesn't matter how many people copycat, it will never be like my event. It will never be your tour, because what you bring to the table in storytelling and enthusiasm and passion, all of it, it will not be the same. So, I've kind of learned to let go of when those things, and hope that people will link arms and be kumbaya and play nice in the sandbox.
I know, right?
We're all working together with the same goal in trying to honor and respect history and support one another, then there shouldn't be any kind of.
And it was so cutthroat out there at the time. I mean, between tour companies, and it was just like, I could imagine like the bickering, like, that's our corner. That's where we start our tour. No, we're coming through here at 10 after. You need to be gone by then. Oh man, like it was nasty.
Yeah, that's sad to me. And and again, if I was a spirit, I'd be like, I would not. I'd be sitting in the corner just watching, not wanting to participate with any of that. There'd be no way.
I feel like that during a lot of investigations. Like when you bring a group of people in, like I did the Waverly, the Waverly House or Waverly Hills, with Strange Escapes. And there was like 100 people in there at one time. And all of, the big paranormal, groups like Shane Pittman and Adam Berry, Amy Bruni, they all grabbed a group and brought them up to a different floor. Greg and Dana Newkirk, love them, right? I don't know if you ever watch them or listen to them, but they are hilarious.
Well, because Dana's Canadian.
Oh, that's right. Right?
Yeah, she's from Kitchener, I think.
So they were, and they would grab and split us up into like groups of 20. So each one of them would have, a group of us, but we just rarely got any interaction. And it's like the spirits are like, what are we? Is this a zoo? Or are we on display now? Do we have to throw gum, or do we have to appease them? So it was just one thing that
I think that's when they start saying the word demon just to get everybody out.
Right? Oh,
let's just say demon and watch them all fall apart. I think that's what happens.
Yeah. But
okay,
let's
not turn this into a bitchy fest.
Oh no, gosh no.
Okay, so there's a lot of history, a lot of haunted places to check out, like so much, especially mob stuff as well too in Los Angeles too.
Oh yes.
A lot of that history. Did you have favorite places that you really enjoyed going to, or places where spirits maybe interacted with you a little bit more than others that you would like to share?
Yes. So there were two places that really were, there's a lot, but there were two that I really did like to go to. One was called Bordner's. So Bordner's was just a half a block off of Hollywood Boulevard. And it was like a dive bar. It used to be a speakeasy back in the day. And it would be where I would finish my tour, because the story was the Black Dahlia had her last drink there before she went.
Oh, that's interesting.
Back downtown to LA. So Bordner's was a real popular place. And they also had right next door a goth club. So certain nights you'd see all the, these goth people hanging out, waiting to get into the club. But anyway, so I would get a lot of great stories from the managers and the bartenders that were working there about, this lady, that a spirit that was seen when they were closing up John was his name, and he was the manager at the time. And he was the only one in the bar. And he felt like something brushed past him. And then eventually he turned and looked, and he saw just this woman that looked very like a pale in color, like what she was wearing. And she had her hair in rollers. And somebody had said at one point that they believed that it was a hair salon to distract from the speakeasy that was in the back. So in the front, it was a salon, like a barber shop. And then in the back was where the speakeasy was. So, yeah, so he had that interaction there. And then the back area is a beautiful fountain that had all these Gothic candles that were lit, and the wax was just dripping.
Oh, I love that.
So yeah, if you ever get back out there again, it's Bordner's. And it's a great place, and it's such a cool, very Art Deco. The Art Deco was really the style, in LA and Tinseltown at that time. So I enjoyed going to Bordner, and it was such a. They called it a dive bar, but it was classy. It was really nice. And they had menu and great food, and they would give my guests, a nice little special on the drinks when they were done. But it just so happened when I was at the bar talking with some people next to me, I just turned and looked in the door, and all of a sudden there's Jared Padalecki. You're a Supernatural fan. So Moose, right? So he walked in, and I was like, ugh! I told these girls, I'm like, I'll be right back. So I snuck and followed him to the bathroom. I felt stupid, but it was so cool. And then he comes out, and I'm down at the opposite end, where the fountain is and the candles. I'm like, Jared, when he came out, and I'm like, I'm stalking a guy in the bathroom. This isn't me. But you can't miss him. The guy's like 8 foot tall, he's so tall.
Funny.
So yeah. And he's like, no, my name's Winston. I went, okay, I get it. You don't want attention, And then he's like, oh, and when he saw me pout, he's like, okay. And I'm like, oh, thank you. So, there was interesting people, stars that did go there because it was so cool. It was so laid back, and it was, nice and small, but it was classy, its own mindset. But yeah, lots of history in that place. Now, the other place was called the Burgundy Room. And again, it was about a half a block off of Hollywood Boulevard. I believe it was just on Vine, off of Hollywood and Vine. And the Burgundy Room was very tiny, and it's very long and narrow. And the whole place is lit up with all those old school, like those red candles that you would see, like when you go to a pizza restaurant, and they have like those, red candles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the red glass with the candles on the inside. So the whole place is red. When you walked in, it's like red room, But it was kind of like a punk dive bar, and there was 2 booths that were into the wall. And when you walk up to these booth tables, they're giant Ouija boards. And
wow.
A lot of people would play Ouija on them. And I've heard some stories about, glasses flying off the table and all this crazy stuff. I would bring my guests in, and this was when I did the pub crawl. So we would go in, and I would have the spirit box hooked up to like a port, so we could have 5 headsets, right, in the spirit box. So I would have 2 spirit boxes. We'd all have headsets, so then we could at least hear. So even if we were doing a EVP session right there, the rest of the people in the bar wouldn't notice because the music from the DJ was playing.
Right.
And man, the stuff that we heard was amazing. I would bring a deck of Uno cards, and I would shuffle them, and I would hand them out to everybody, and I would lay the card down, face down, in front of everyone. And then we would all go around, and then everyone would say, hi, my name is so-and-so. If there's anyone here that, wants to tell us, do you know what the color and the number of this card is?
That's brilliant.
So lo and behold, we heard the spirit come through and say 3 red. The guy flips his card over. It's a red 3. And we're all like, what? How Like, and when you think about like quantum physics, everything is atoms, right? So it's like, how are they able to see that? Or were they predicting the future? Did they know ahead of time what it was going to pull? So I love these types of questions, but that was such like a wow moment.
And it does give you more questions. It just gives you more questions. And I think this is why, I love everything about the paranormal for that reason. Because I have 1,000 questions all the time on a good day. And then you have a moment like that. And I was like, oh, give me more. I knew, Howie, that you would like Kimberly. He likes, Howie likes pushing the envelope and stretching those boundaries and trying new things and seeing what you discover, right? And again, like, be the fun date. Be the fun date for your card game. See what happens.
Oh man, right. And it's playing games with them. Whoever thought? People come in and they're like, is there anybody here? And and they start asking stupid questions. It's like, have a good time with them. Why not? I don't know.
Especially in that type of environment.
Right.
In that type of environment. And what kind of responses would you get?
And that was the one location that I know I had an attachment follow me home. It was the most intense experience I've ever had. I've never had night paralysis. I was like a skeptic. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Just like the doctors say, you're dreaming and all of a sudden you wake up out of your dream and your muscles freeze up, until it happened to me. All right. So we had finished the pub crawl there and we were connecting with the guy. We were using EMF detectors and getting answers. We believed it was a man who was in his 40s or 50s. And supposedly we think he said he died from suicide, but weren't too sure. So lo and behold, tour's over. I'm heading back to my car and it's probably about like 12:30. And I passed by a kebab shop and I'm like, let me go in for a bite to eat and a Coke, before I go home and go to bed. So, and on my pub crawls, I would have a 2-drink limit. That's it. I would start with the toast and then I would have 1 drink at one of the other locations. That's it. I don't get loaded. Like in Savannah, a lot of the tour guys would get loaded with the rest of the group.
I don't drink at the Dining with the Dead events or anything like that either. Anything where I'm working publicly, I do not want anyone saying that I'm all liquored up. And just not anyway. But especially when you are when you don't know what spirits you're going to potentially have come through. It's your name and your reputation as well too, and the integrity and morals that you're bringing to that.
Right. And then what I would tell people, like the disclaimer on the tour for the pub crawl, please don't show up drunk and get overly inebriated, because the spirits might be very attracted to you and you might bring something home that you don't want to, Yeah, you can definitely be prone to spirit attachment very easily when you're in that state.
Are you comfortable sharing the story about that?
Like, oh my God, yes. It
went sideways.
It was so amazing. So, okay. So I drive, I'm going home, right? It's maybe like 1 o'clock. I crawl into bed.
With your yummy kebab.
With my yummy kebab. I ate it there. So I gave myself enough time before I got home, right? My husband, he was an Indian and he didn't really like this. He didn't believe in any of it. He thought it was dumb what I was doing, but he's like, well, she's making money from it, I guess, So it's interesting, they're not really all that superstitious, just didn't believe in all that, which is interesting, right? He's from India, right? Very spiritual community, but just
personal
right?
Space.
Right. So he was asleep. I crawled into bed. It must have been about 1:30. And back in that time, it must have been, 2016. When I go to bed, I'm asleep until like 8 hours later when I wake up at 9. Very rarely did I ever wake up in the middle of the night. I wasn't going through menopause at that time, right? So I didn't have all that. So I was asleep by 1:30, and it was maybe about an hour and a half later. I felt this tingling sensation on my body. And I was like, what? And it was like, I wasn't quite asleep, but I was like trying to doze off, right? Because when I felt that tingling right away, I was like,
was it like electric feeling? Like when that static feel?
yep. So I felt that tingling and it was the whole body. And I thought, what is going on? And right away I went, oh shit. And it felt like someone sat at the edge of the bed because it felt like my feet went, what? And I went, oh shit, something's here with us right now. And I didn't freak out. And I was laying on my stomach and I tried to look out to the side of the bed to see if I could see a bright light or a shadow or something. And it was like the minute, I turned and looked, it was like the spirit came behind me and just gave me this bear hug. And the air in me just went, and I was like that. I could remember my eyeballs moving. And at one point I wanted to like nudge my husband to be like, break me from this. And I just couldn't. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. I was just stuck. And I didn't want to freak out. And otherwise, if I would have freaked out, he would have been like, what the hell are you bringing all this shit home? And we're getting a divorce, we're already divorced anyway, but still, I was like, so I tried not to react. And while this was happening to me, all of a sudden
would you be able to react? Like could you react inside because your thoughts would be there, but you weren't able to articulate anything.
Right. But get this. I remember my eyeballs being able to move and a smile coming across my face because I went, I'm having my first experience. So I smiled from it. I was excited, right? I wasn't afraid. And all of a sudden it let up and I was like, oh, and I just turned out and I said, you can't be here right now. You have to leave. Otherwise I would have been happy to grab a spirit box and say, let's go into the living room and have a chat. But then my ex would have
that was enough. It went away. You didn't have to do anything extra.
I still felt a tingling on my body, but that still could have been residual from that,
But did that spirit move on, or did it take a bit of coaxing to get it to go where it needed to go?
I don't think it took that much coaxing, but get this. So maybe about a minute or two after I said that, you have to leave, you can't stay here, I had the most vibrant, clairvoyant vision in my mind's eye. I had a vision of a police officer walking away, and he looked to be like he was from the 40s or 50s, kind of like the octagon police cap. Light blue shirt, short sleeves, dark navy pants, wide hips, a little bit longer hair in the back. I didn't see the face because it was like he turned around and went, okay, I'll leave. So I saw him walking away and I was like, damn, I wish I would have known who that was, and I wish I would have pursued it a little bit more, but if my husband wasn't there, I would have totally gotten up and said, let's talk. Who are you? Why are you here? So
interesting though. Still an interesting experience.
And when I tell people on my tour, because I love to talk about night paralysis, because now I've experienced it at a different level. So I know how to judge that. And I'll tell people, it's like you're being electrocuted. It's like you're sticking your finger in like a light socket or hitting a live wire and you're like, like everything freezes. You can't move. That's what it feels like. So when all these people are like, I'm waking up from a dream and I've frozen, that's like, that could be, but there's also the paranormal aspect of it as well. I didn't have this sensation that something was on my chest and pressing on me and looking down at me, right? It was, what was that bear hug about? Well, was it well, and this is the other thing that I explain to people. So now we're getting into Reiki, right? So I talk a little bit about auras. We all have this energetic aura, this bubble that's out like 8+ feet, right? All these layers, onions. And if you are walking on the street and you walk past somebody who's maybe a bad person, right? Maybe they've sinned, they've done something bad. They've got this regret going through their mind. or they have cancer. They've got a hole in the aura. If you walk past that person, you don't touch them, right? You don't touch them, but your auras mesh, and you get that weird vibe, like get a weird vibe from that person, right? And that's what that is. It's that aura, that energy from that person that you are feeling. So even though this spirit may not have actually touched me or grabbed me or hugged me, just them sitting next to me, maybe he did have his hands on me, but it was so strong. Yeah.
When I have spirits grab my wrist, it's fingers. Like it feels like individual fingers, and you can feel each individual finger, and it is ice cold. There is a drastic temperature change when they do that. For sure. It is super interesting. Yes. And letting people know, be careful what you wish for, and knowing it. I love that you educate people when you're doing those tours as well too, because I think it's responsible. It's responsible of you to educate people what they are exposing themselves to, still keeping it light and fun, but here's the reality of it as well too.
Sure.
I did see your question, and I did highlight it so that I wouldn't forget it. So James was asking about the Winchester Mansion House. Have you ever been there?
I've been there way before they were doing ghost tours. Yeah, and that was in San Jose. So right. The Winchester Mystery House. Yeah, and at one point I'll never forget seeing that they were doing overnight wine paranormal investigations, and I'm like, I need to do that, but never got a chance to go there and do it. If they're still doing it, maybe, but that would still be amazing.
Did you get a vibe when you were there?
No, it was really before I was in. I was like 10 years old, maybe 12.
I appreciate that you're honest about it.
Oh God, yeah, no, I don't ever want to tell people that I'm something that I'm not.
Well, and it doesn't mean that it's not just in that moment on that day. You weren't, and I've had that same experience in different places that are supposed to be incredibly, and it could just be an off moment, could just be me in the way that my energy works. I'm not feeling the same thing as other people. And
that's how I felt at the Waverly Hills. I was like, but again, there's so many people there. The spirits are like, yeah, we'll just set this one out.
That's what I think. That's what I think that spirits would do. Yeah, no, I'm just going to hang out over here for a while.
Yeah.
That's what I think would happen.
The other thing, go ahead.
Yes, Jen. Yes, Jen. Yes. And more than one. So Jen, my friend Jen, is asking, ever feel a pinch or pat on the butt from a jokester spirit? Yes.
I've felt probably a pat. I wouldn't say as a pinch, but definitely, and this was a great segue, and it's funny. She read my mind. I was going to segue into this topic. So when I was on,
and as a hairstylist, Barbara right? As well too, right? We're all intuitive folks.
Yep. When I would do tours on Hollywood Boulevard, I would hear the spirit say, "I'm behind you," and I would think, "Well, why aren't you in front of me?" And my reasoning is, they don't want us to see them. They don't want us to feel them. If they're behind us, then it's easier for them to step back and watch the craziness of this ghost tour. But the minute they're in front of us, then we might sense them. If we're intuitive, right? We might sense them, and we either might freak out or we may get spooked, and all of a sudden we leave, and then we scream, and then the spirit screams, and then they're like, ah, and everyone runs in their own direction, right? So yeah, so I have heard "I'm behind you" so many times on tour. And one of the videos that the audio clips that I sent you, I believe it has a spirit saying that, because it just so happened to be recording one day when I heard that. "I'm behind you."
Well, we're going to do a couple of things first, and then we're going to see if we can get one of those audio clips to play if you want.
Yeah. The audio clip has 3 different clips on it. So once we play it, I want to tell everybody about everything, and then you could just play it right through.
Sure. Tammy Jonings is just sharing. I had an experience of waking up to feeling an entire body spooning me.
Oh,
Thought it was my hubby, but it wasn't. He had left for work. They whispered something threatening to me and I couldn't move. But then I moved and they were gone. Well, that's unpleasant. And I hope that it only happened once. And I hope that you were able to, whatever you needed to do. Archangel Michael, get them out now, or whatever it is that you were able to do, that it only happened the one time. Wow. I am such a no-go in my bedroom with spirits. It's like shields up, rubber bubble with slime in my bedroom. I do not want to be bothered. Don't bug me. Do not. And I work at home.
How's the rest of it? Like, do you have like a lot of haunted objects and artifacts in your house?
Well, I have alleged haunted artifacts that I do not put energy into, and have had no experiences from those artifacts. But I treat them respectfully as if they are, but I have not had experiences with them. I do have experiences in the house the odd time. Usually when I have experiences in the house, it's when it's a spirit that's showing up early for their loved one session that would be coming up, right? And that happens frequently. And as soon as I let them know what the boundaries are with that, they're usually pretty good. And some of it I question as well too. Like the lights in my daughter's bedroom would always that had no batteries in them, that were those fairy lights, would turn on with no batteries when she was coming home from university. And so we always assumed, but then it was posed to me that potentially it's my daughter and her energy and telekinesis, because she would be so excited about coming home. So I don't know. Even though I'm here, I think that I'm open to all kinds of learning new things and possibilities to what it is too. I don't always want to say definitively it's just this.
Yeah, right.
Where I have some weirdness at our house is I have a heavy cast iron dragonfly door knocker on our front door. And it's stiff, like it's stiff to lift and to knock, and it will sometimes knock boom boom.
Whoa.
And it's an inside porch that's covered. I've got a haint blue ceiling on it, you know.
I know that's from Savannah.
Blue colored, but yeah, that it is, and again, it's usually a spirit that is excited about something that's happening. Tammy is sharing, yes, I asked for protection and helped. No similar experience, thank goodness. Excellent. I'm just going to do our station ID, and then we can see if I can make this sharing of the audio clips happen properly. Yeah. We're just gonna, yes, and so it is. Yeah. So if you are just joining us now, thank you so much for being here. You are listening to Spirit Switchboard. I am your host, Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, and you are listening to us live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 in the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM out of beautiful New Orleans. My guest today is Kimberly Christine, the owner-operator of Duluth Ghost Tours. She wears many hats, and she is just sharing some of her stories, experiences, and with us. And it's a pleasure to hang out with you and share this time and space with you.
Yes.
And we're going to be doing it again live in person. So this October in Thunder Bay at the Lake Superior Paracon again.
Yeah, I've already kind of been getting my presentation gathered together.
Oh my gosh, good for you.
Yeah, I'm getting a step ahead a little bit, but I need to, because life has been crazy and out of balance for me pretty much since I moved home. You know, it's hard packing up and starting all over. And that's, yeah. And that's like when I was married to my ex, you know, we were always packing up and moving for his career in film, right? So from Vegas to Los Angeles to Savannah, Georgia, back to Los Angeles. And and it's tough breaking into the industry there. It really is who you know. And when you don't know anybody, you have to start fresh. You have to work on a film, not getting paid. You're volunteering. So then that means you're doing other jobs, nickel and diming jobs. And it was
Right.
struggle, and for him as a producer in India and being an Indian, if they tell them we're not going to pay you, he's like, we don't work for nothing, So he went back to India to work in movies, and it really pulled us apart. So yeah. It was pretty brutal. So I constantly had to start over, pack up, start over, pack up, start over. So I've always had that master's degree, but it didn't always work when we moved to Savannah, or when I was in LA, that master's degree didn't mean nothing, even though it was film and theater, costumes, makeup.
Right.
They didn't care. I had to take it off of my resume just to try to find a job at some, Joe Blow hotel or something like that.
But I think all of those things, it's still all coming together in what you are offering us, and what you are offering, storytelling, how you present. You were your tour. You represent your tour. How you were dressed for the Paracon, like, it was just brilliant. Like, I think that all of our experience sort of accumulate and are important. And it gets us to where we need to be eventually, for sure.
Yeah. And that's what I'm like. I want to be invested in this industry 100%, but I still need to work normal jobs right now to pay this exorbitant rent that's happening, in this age. So, and I'm doing everything by myself, and so I'm working 3 different jobs just to try to make rent. And it's like, doing stuff like this, I'm not going to be able to make like starting a podcast. And, my ghost tours are down for the winter. So it's like, so I'm like panicking and scrambling just to make ends meet. And it's like, I just want to be invested in this industry 100% and thrive off of it.
Well,
I know we had a conversation at that restaurant that day. They're starting.
And I think all of that's going to happen.
Yes.
It's all going to be there. This one is the one that's titled Peg.
Okay. Yes. So I have the story. So I would finish my tour back then at Hollywood High School. And at this point, I would always talk about Peg Entwistle, the gal that jumped off of the Hollywood sign in 1916.
Oh.
All right. We would stand on the boulevard and on one of the side streets where you could look right up the street and see the Hollywood sign. So at that point, I would stop at one of those big boxes where it was like maps. You could pull out a free map of Hollywood or whatever, pay $1 for a map. So I would stand there and I would do an EVP session. And I would have everybody listen to some EVPs. And then I would talk about Peg and her demise, jumping off of the Hollywood signs. And then we would walk and eventually end at Hollywood High School. Now, Peg never attended Hollywood High School. So she was originally from the East Coast and came out here to try to break into the industry. And she got her first role in a film, like a speaking role. Back in those days, it was kind of like silent films. So she was a beautiful girl, right? Real pretty, very 20 slapper kind of, style, look. But the minute talkies came out, they said her voice sounded terrible. Her acting wasn't that great. And she was, really upset, and she took it to heart. And I think she was in a relationship with someone, things weren't working out, and she climbed up into the Hollywood Hills, climbed up the Hollywood sign, and she jumped off of it. So of course, lots of ghost stories around the Hollywood Hills and seeing her ghost wander the hills and maybe possibly seeing it on the sign. So I was at Hollywood High School. My tour was over, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to sit here and just have a conversation, run the spirit box. Maybe I'll have better luck. As we were talking, right? It's always like when you're alone, you're getting better activity rather than having 20 people sitting around. So everybody left. I was by myself, and I decided to run a spirit box. And I asked who was here. And I heard a female voice come through and say, Peg. And right away, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. The minute I heard that, in my mind's eye, I mean, in my mind, I thought, holy shit, did I just hear Peg? And she responded to my thoughts.
Yeah, so that's what I find too. If you think the question, they will
Yep.
they will answer it. And our thoughts are loud, and our thoughts are there before we say it out, like before we say it.
So yeah, so she answered and said, "You do," but I didn't hear it because I was so overwhelmed with just hearing her name. So then I asked out loud, "Did I just hear Peg?" And again, you will hear her respond in a different tone and inflection, saying, "You do." So that's what that is. So I don't know if there might be a couple of other EVPs in there, and the first one is probably might be a spirit saying, "I'm behind you." Then we get into Peg. And then the last one is an attachment that came with me from Savannah. When I did my tours on Hollywood Boulevard, I would hear his voice come through, and his name was Ed. Scratchy voice, Ed, Ed. He was always at the Gribble House when we were doing tours in that old trolley warehouse. I would hear his name, and he would always, say Ed and say my name. So yeah, I'm out in LA, and all of a sudden his voice came through, and right away I was like, oh my God, Ed? Are you still here? And he was like, yes. And you'll hear his voice very excitedly say that he was still there with us. So yes.
I think that they can jump from haunted location to haunted location. Personally.
It was weird. But then he left me. I think he found another girl on Hollywood Boulevard to hook up with.
That's funny.
So yeah, so that's what, even though it says Peg, I think it's the full all of them together.
Okay, let's give it a roll, and hopefully I've done this correctly. Maybe I haven't.
And you.
And then it stops. And then
Peg? Did I hear a peg? Ed, are you still here with me?
Yes.
Cool, huh?
Crazy.
I actually made it into a really, I made it into a little fun video. I had like a picture in the background and little like booms and scary moments that I created a little clip with. So this was with all the fancy stuff. But isn't that very interesting? Like,
yeah. So Richie, I've already promoted you out. You're late. You're late. I even said buy the merch. You're late. So Banter with Richie B, Saturday nights. Lots of fun stuff happening. Please check them out. I know you've got 83 kids. I hope you guys are all healthy with all of your kiddos. We have had sick. Everybody's been sick here. So that's the other audio clip or EVPs that you have. It was titled, that clip is titled Brisket. So Brisket. I don't know.
So when I do my tours in Canal Park, we finish out at the lighthouse. It's dark out there. We're along the canal. It's, perfectly spooky. So again, I would ask some really interesting questions, and I would ask spirits like, what's your favorite ice cream? What food do you miss the most? And a spirit came through and said, brisket, loud and clear. And all of us were like, brisket? So yeah, and it's funny because a lot of times somebody will hear one thing, like if you hear red, somebody will be like, I thought I heard dead, bed, said, but when you all hear the same thing, I call it the gold mine. So that's when, we found that was the perfect EVP to hear. So if you want to go ahead and play that.
I agree, Richie, brisket. Bring on the meat.
Right?
Yes. Okay.
What was your favorite food that you missed?
Crazy. I couldn't play that for my son. He's like, and you know what's super funny too? I can't believe I'm going to share this. Well, yeah, I can't believe I'm going to share this. I had taken brisket out a couple of weeks ago because I was going to make brisket, and then I got sick and left it sitting in the fridge and had to throw my brisket meat out because it went bad before I cooked it. But the whole brisket story. It was like it made me cry that I was having to throw this meat out because I got sick and then I couldn't cook it and I forgot it in the fridge, and nobody else cooks, even though I have a kid doing culinary arts. What's that all about?
Geez, you think that you'd get special attention.
Brisket.
When I was in Savannah, I was even asking interesting questions. And I'll never forget, I had asked, what's your favorite food, or what's your favorite snack or something? And I heard like one spirit say pizza and another one fajitas. And then we stepped out of that room. And then I came back with the next group, and loud and clear through the spirit box, they said Cheetos. It was like they were waiting for me to come back so they could tell me that they miss Cheetos.
Where were you?
That was at the Gribble House in Savannah.
So, like, I wonder, like, what era those spirits are coming from then, if they're talking about like Cheetos and
fajitas and pizza. I know, right?
Yeah,
that was like the weirdest thing, and it was so loud. They had to say Cheetos.
Or were they picking up? Like, I'm that person. You know how you said that you deal out the cards, and you tried to get them to say what the card was, right? I'm like, guess the snack in my purse. That would be me. Guys, sometimes it's jerky, so that's close to brisket, I suppose. But
right.
It would be like, guess the snacks in the purse.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I thought too. It's like, well,
maybe it's Cheetos. Who brought Cheetos?
Maybe what if it was an attachment, a family member, that was following somebody in the group.
So this is true too.
All those to think about, And when I do the ghost tours, we're always, for the most part, like when I've been in, Hollywood and like Havasu, Arizona, and Duluth, they're all outdoors. So it's a crapshoot who you're going to get. It's going to be random people that are walking around and hanging out, So it's not like you're going to a house where you're just.
How long have you been doing the Duluth tours?
So I've been doing Duluth tours since 2022. This last summer was my third summer doing it. And I noticed a dramatic decrease, and a lot of it was the economy. Kind of the same reason why my massage business had dropped as well. The economy stepped in, and even though it was still a good year, but there was definitely a drop off. Hopefully this next summer things will change and pick back up again. It's always busy, but it just wasn't quite as busy. But yeah, so it's a 3-hour walking tour. Even in Hollywood, it was 3 hours. Everyone's like 3 hours. And I'm like, well, you add in like a half an hour paranormal investigation, right there. And then
honestly, 3 hours goes by so quick when you're doing any of those things, and you're talking and you're having a good time. And you have to remind people, how long will they sit and binge a Netflix show? So all 8 episodes came out, and they'll sit and watch the whole bloody thing, but complain if I'm, it's just silliness. And then once they're in it, so. Like
an hour tour to me, I've done hour tours. It's like beep, 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 beep. You're done. It's like,
so fun.
I mean, oh my gosh. And then, on Hollywood Boulevard, there's so much. And that's why I thought, well, then maybe I'll do a separate pub crawl, but, and then it's like, well, then do I need to split up the hotels from the theaters in LA? And it really got down to like nitpicky, and, I really had to like keep it short because, some people complain that it's 3 hours long. It's like,
when I was there, I really wanted to connect with Steve McQueen. I wanted to connect with Steve McQueen so badly. And then I forget what hotel it was. I'd have to look it up, but it was one of those older, had a haunted history attached to it. I honestly don't remember. There was a lot going on that trip, but we got to the room and came out, and I didn't notice going into the room, but when I came out, it was a great big photo of Steve McQueen, like, which is, that was enough for me. I wanted Steve McQueen somehow, and he was like right there outside of my room the whole time. So that was all good.
You know, the one thing that was really cool, you know, because I'm the type of person, like if I'm, researching ghost tours in LA was fascinating. I mean, going to the library in downtown LA, it's like 8 stories tall. It was so huge. And I'm like walking out with all these books. I'm like, oh my God. But it was amazing, you know, going there and going to all these different levels and floors for all of this stuff. So the research was interesting in of itself. And I would always go into the properties. I would talk to the manager or try to talk to the owner. So I was getting firsthand accounts. I wasn't just Googling shit, you know, and hoping that I could, you know, make stuff up. But eventually people would connect me to other people. And lo and behold, someone connected me with a magician from the Magic Castle. Tom, I can't remember his name right now, but he's written a couple of haunted books, and he gave me tickets for this big special event that they were doing at the Magic Castle. And I got to go into the Magic Castle and have a night. Oh my gosh. I mean, that was so cool. And, you know, there was history that it was haunted, but lo and behold, I think it was like in 2016, the last year I was in LA, there's a magician hung himself in one of the closets.
Oh,
yeah. So I'm like, well, now it's really haunted.
Well, it just adds layers. And I think too, the more that you go to those places, those spirits get to recognize who you are, and it adds a different layer to the tours and the stories, because there's an interaction that happens because they recognize you and your story. Or your intention, I guess. They understand your intention when you're doing those things, but very sad that magician hung himself in that.
I know, right? And
Jen, we can road trip, and I will pack the snacks. And you drive.
Yeah.
And you have to drive.
I hated giving it up. You know, I mean, leaving, the tours were so much fun there, and I, you know, could have added on to it, but me and my ex were splitting, and it's like, I can't support myself out here.
Oh, the universe had different plans for you. The universe had Duluth and Thunder Bay and this and your podcast, and you got all kinds of like fun things that are happening. So I think I don't know. There's lots.
And from it, so leaving LA, my mom lived in Lake Havasu, Arizona. So she's like, well, why don't you move out here? You need a better backup plan, you know, because I let my hairdressing license go. I let it go. I did it for 4 or 5 years. And I'm like, I'm never going to do hair again. Well, if I was in LA, I could have at least been working at a salon, and I could have stayed there and worked through it.
Coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Right?
Coulda, shoulda, woulda. Itty bitty shitty thinking. Moving forward.
She's like, well, come out here to Havasu, recover from your divorce. There's a massage school here. Get another backup plan. So that's when I, you know, went to school for massage. But I also knew that the London Bridge was in Lake Havasu, and I went, well, I'm going to be creating another tour. So I created a new tour at the London Bridge, and it was one of those things where, lo and behold, someone was doing tours years ago, but they stopped. So nobody was doing a tour there. And guess what? It just fell into my lap. Was that
another episode of Ghost Adventures?
Yep.
There was 2, right? That wasn't that one?
So I was a background actor at the Gribble House in Savannah. You could see my face in shadow, and that's it, right? But when I was in like Havasu, 1 month before COVID broke out, Ghost Adventures, you know, had planned to come out. They were going back and forth with me for about a year. And then finally they came out a month before COVID to shoot. And so I got to be on that episode, like literally talking with Zach. And, you know, and then boom, the pandemic hit. And it was like a weird stroke of luck that everybody was home watching TV at that time, right? They were stuck indoors. So eventually in the fall, when, you know, September, October run around, that's usually when temperatures start to cool a little bit out in Arizona. So my tours started back up again mid-September. So that October, everyone was booking a tour out there in Havasu because I saw you on that show. And I'm like, awesome. Right. So it was a great experience to be part of that. And then eventually, when I left in 2022, everyone's like, why are you leaving? Your massage business is doing great. The ghost tours are doing good. And I'm like, I hate the desert. I've been in the desert for like 14, 15 years between Vegas, between California and Arizona. I'm done. I need seasons. I miss seasons so badly. So I gave all that up to start all over again in Duluth.
So it's just an ending of a chapter and the start of a new one, right? It doesn't mean you appreciated it for what it was at the time and ready for a new experience. So with the Duluth tours, I have never been to Duluth. So not very well traveled, just saying. So tell me about how it started, exciting things, what you would expect. Would you like me to put up the picture?
Yeah. Let's do that.
Let's show your Serena saying, welcome back home. We love you, Kimberly Christine.
Thank you.
Let's put it up for everybody to see.
Serena! She's from Duluth.
Let's put we're just going to put your Reiki picture up first. And then we'll do your I know, because it's just fun.
Yeah, it was a really cool photo shoot that I did with a photographer in Lake Havasu. So it was a lot of fun sitting down and just doing some weird stuff. I had a crystal in my hand from, oh my gosh. Oh, is it here? Oh, I can show you. So, oh no, it's in the other room. Sorry. Oh, yeah.
Because you are a Reiki master and help teach and promote spiritual awareness, intuitive development, all of that kind of fun stuff. And again, how you present things is outside of the box as well too, and wanting to do things new and fresh. And I think people are drawn to that.
And I've always had a love for quantum physics, like quantum mechanics, anything like, I mean, to me, quantum in the spirit world they're like that, right? Wow. So really, I've got into quantum physics when I was in college, and I wasn't doing well. Somehow I wasn't grasping it, but I was there every day. I was sitting up front. I was trying to figure it out. And then eventually I started, getting more books and reading more books. Brian Greene, of course, Neil deGrasse Tyson, that's more astrophysicist, but, Dr. Quantum, Fred Allen Wolf, and, really trying to get into all of this mind-bending stuff. If anyone here has seen What the Bleep Do We Know? That is such an amazing movie. And it dives into the quantum world, and it talks about intention.
Have you done spoon bending with folks before?
Ooh, never done spoon bending.
Let's do spoon bending together when we're in Thunder Bay.
Yes.
I've done spoon bending with kids, like with summer camps with kids who experience intuitive things and paranormal things, and it is fun, and it's like brand new. I go to the store and buy brand new, take them out of the package, give everybody their spoons, and it is a lot of fun.
That's cool.
Michelle Plummer, have you done the spoon bending with your kids too? It is all about that letting go. There is no spoon, and then away it bends.
Wow.
And it's about having fun, like playing music and laughing and dancing and just letting go. And as you're letting go, having that intention and just sort of like rubbing that energy with the spoon so that it will move. And then you shut the music off and turn and look to see your spoon, and it's done its thing.
Right. So
Mhm.
cool. So that picture that we're seeing, that's on the canal. That's once we've, passed the bridge, we've talked about, everything, and this is the final investigation on the tour. So a lot of times the people just would start sitting down on the ground. I'm like, okay, So then I would set my lantern down. I would put the spirit box down with the speaker, and I would just tell everybody, if you don't want to ask any questions, that's fine. If you want, you can introduce yourself. Think of it as a date. You're meeting somebody for the first time. What kind of questions would you ask them? Where are you from? What'd you do for a living? Did you play any sports? Did you play, were you a musician? What's your favorite ice cream? Your favorite drink? So yeah, so many things. And I like, again, to go outside of the box. I always love to ask, do aliens exist? And of course I've heard yes from a few of them. I also
Have
like,
aliens come through?
well, that I don't think so, but I would ask the spirits, like, do you witness aliens? I mean, are you seeing it on a different plane and in a different level? So, I mean, I would ask it a
What
lot.
a great question.
Very, very few times I think I heard one time, like, I don't know. But then one day we heard a guy come through and say yes, and it was like, wow, awesome. And I recorded that as well, so I have an audio on that. A lot of the audio that I do record, of course, I post it on my social media, like Duluth Ghost Tours. You may see it on my Instagram as well.
Under which account?
Duluth Ghost Tours. Yep.
Okay.
So I have Duluth Ghost Tours on YouTube, which I don't do enough, but I'm trying to get on YouTube more. And I think a lot of it was with the whole TikTok ban. People were getting worried, and people are saying, well, you can start going to YouTube and doing shorts. And I thought, well, I should be doing YouTube anyway. I can have long talk sessions. I want to do podcasts, right? I want to do fun stuff and talk. Like I said, that throat chakra is so big, I can talk a lot. So to be able to get on YouTube is great. So Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook are Duluth Ghost Tours, or it might be under like the Duluth Ghostess. But I think if you type in Duluth Ghost Tours, you'll find it. I also like to play around and ask fun questions, like knock, knock. And we heard one spirit respond, come in. And that was recorded as well. I recorded that as well. So that's somewhere in my files. Yeah. So, having fun, asking fun questions, not getting, past the stale, when did you die?
But those questions also give us an insight to the other side, and it contributes to learning more, right? And I think all of those sort of walking tours that do investigations along the way contribute to the community and helping understand more. And again, it's about sharing that information. So I'm glad that you record it and share it for people too.
Yeah. I try to do that for the most part. But yeah, so the ghost tours are same thing, 3 hours. We stop inside Hoops Brewing, where we'll do a halftime potty break and then get a beverage, and then I'll tell some stories about the hotel and the brewery there and the history of the Waterfront Plaza, which has a lot of history as well. 1903, it was a warehouse, the largest warehouse wholesale manufacturer of outdoor and building supplies in the world. Eventually, in the 60s, it turned into a hotel, and I've asked the manager any experiences, any people, from any of the rooms check out or complain about anything. And she was like, oh yeah, there's one room in particular that gets the most complaints. And I said, book me in it. So I stayed there one night and yep, I had an experience.
Really?
Same thing, the tingling, the zap. I felt the little zap, and it was like, oh, here we go. And sure thing, it was like the witching hour. The same thing with my first paranormal experience, the night paralysis. That was like about 3:00 in the morning,
Interesting. But do you think that we can create it because we've heard it so much? It's sort of embedded in our subconscious that 3:00 is the time. Do you think there's something?
Maybe I do.
That too?
Yeah. I mean, but I was kind of sleeping, so I was off and on, when I had that first experience. So when that
Yeah.
happened, I remember kind of looking at the clock, and it was like a little after 3, and I'm like, it's a coincidence, but and this is where the quantum and the science comes in. Like, why 3? I know everything is quiet, right? Our bodies are still, we're sleeping, we're more attuned to noises and sounds, but why 3?
It's spiritual. 3 is a spiritual number, is it not?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I think
I
so.
didn't think about that. Yeah.
I don't know. I was born at 3:33, so I think it's very spiritual.
Oh,
I think there's something to it for sure.
it's like it's me. It's all me.
I don't know.
So the hotel definitely, there was an experience that I had there. So
do people that come to the participate with the tours add or give you news stories as well too, or have had experiences that they share that you're able to add into your tours as well too?
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's always one little crumb of something, and it's so evolving, like every year it's like, okay, I got to add this story, but then what story I'm going to have to not talk about. And it's like, oh God, that's so tough. What am I going to drop? So yeah, so it really is kind of a balancing game, but every year it's somehow different because there's something new to add.
I love that.
So it's ever evolving.
And as a creative person, you probably do too. Like as a creative person, not having it the same all the time, right?
Yeah.
A
variety.
So your friend Serena is sharing when I worked at how do I pronounce that? Bananas? Now Adventure Zone. I heard a disembodied voice say my name and the carousel turned on by itself.
Oh.
I love when they say our name. I love when they give us our name back.
I had that first experience. So the Adventure Zone, that's a really big indoor, like amusement park or play area. I think.
How big is Duluth?
Duluth is, let's say, like 87,000. And if you're like within the outer cities and towns, it could easily be like 200,000 with all the connecting cities. So yeah. But yeah, so Adventure Zone is a really big indoor play area. And I've had one of the workers there, not Serena, but somebody else say that, oh yeah, there's stuff that's going on here. And that was all part of the Waterfront Suites Plaza, where it was that wholesale manufacturing property in 1903, where there was almost 1,000 workers building things and making things and offices. And yeah, so there is definitely, all different kinds of spirits that just still want to hang out, Yeah.
And it's all along the waterfront. Like there's all along the water. And I think that contributes to the spiritual energy as well.
100%. What I like to tell people, so I'm sure you're familiar with the concept, the 21 grams.
Yes. But please share for people who may not be.
So 21 grams, there's controversy around it. And this doctor, I think it was the 1800s, maybe early 1900s, had, started noticing that when he would have a patient on the table, they would give the weight, this person weighed, like 100 pounds and whatever. And then at death, then they have to report the death. Okay, the time is such and such, and the weight is 21 grams less. That's interesting. Right. And the patient didn't urinate. There wasn't anything that had happened. So where was that 21 grams going? So he believed that it was the weight of the soul. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of, controversy around it. And I haven't done any recent updates about it, but I do kind of believe it because this is my theory. So our body is like 70% water, right? So when we die, there is some sort of soul, but what is the weight of that soul? Is that soul water? Is it evaporation? And this is where I go into, the law, the first law of thermodynamics. Energy can never be destroyed or created. It just changes form. So that 21 grams or that soul leaves the body, what is that soul? Is it water? Is it steam? Is it vapor? Right? Is it something? Something is leaving. If it really is something, there is some weight to it. So that's my theory about that.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So what's next? Did you just taught a Reiki? Did you not teach? You had a new idea that you were going to be using and incorporating with your Reiki?
Yep. Paranormal Reiki class.
I was excited for that. Can you share a little bit about that? And you just did it? Are you going to do it again? Give us all the details.
Yep. So I'm doing live classes, but I want to start doing online. Online gets more people interested, but at the same time, you're not getting that energy touch one-on-one.
Yep.
And that's when I tell people you have to bring somebody in. You need to have, somebody to come in so you can sense and feel that energy.
Yeah.
But I had a live class in November. I put up a live class for I think February. Nobody's been an interest in it, but again, I think the economy isn't like in my favor right now, so I just kind of want to wait it out, especially with the past election and everything. There's chaos in the world, so let's just wait till things calm down. But I thought it would have been perfect to do it right before not Halloween, Valentine's Day, right? How to share love, right? So paranormal Reiki is a way to be able to prepare using Reiki when you're going out on investigations. I think it's great for paranormal investigators. If for some reason your equipment, your batteries die, and there you are on this property that you're at, and you're not going to get another opportunity to get there. So what are you going to do? Now you have to use something different, and that's going to be your own body. So to be able to set that equipment aside and just sit in a way, it's like you're meditating, right? You're going through your clairs. What are you sensing? Are you seeing anything in your mind's eye, right? Or what kind of intuition are you feeling? Do you smell something? Do you hear anything? So it's really kind of trying to bring through all of those clairs when you're doing Reiki and just sitting and feeling that energy. A lot of people are like, well, you don't want to be taking any negative energy on. It's like, well, you don't. And that's the biggest worry about a lot of people. Well, am I going to absorb people's energy? It's like, you don't absorb it. It's you're a funnel. You're just a conduit. The energy comes in and it just comes out, right? You're not absorbing it. But there is a time, if you are doing energy, you're trying to sense that energy. So it's just opening up your sensitivities to sense and feel, and to try to communicate with spirit in that way. And everyone has one ability that's stronger than the other.
For sure. There's always going to be one clair, like one muscle that's stronger, but when you really understand how to work with it, then the other ones start to build as well too. So I think that's great. And the more that you do paranormal investigations, the more sensitive you get. So being able to discern what's what and feel empowered with your tool set
Sure.
is super important. And
it's and it's not just about sitting and trying to communicate with spirit. A lot of Reiki is about clearing a space as well. Using your crystals, clearing your mind, getting that protective bubble in, protecting yourself, helping friends. If you have a friend that's like, dude, there's shit going on in my house and I'm afraid. And it's like, okay, I'll come in and let me help, because
you don't the basement.
Right. Because the basement's colder and damper. And what's with that water, right? Spirits are attracted to that water.
Or dirt basements.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. Right.
I have that.
Oh, yeah. So being able to help people, I think is going to be another great opportunity as well, because, so many people are like, oh, do I need to hire a priest? It's like, no, you're the priest. You're the pastor. Tell the spirits to get the F out of your house. Tell them to leave you alone and be good, be nice, right?
And be open-minded though, because sometimes spirits that are appearing antagonistic or just frustrated because they have not been heard. So sometimes they're just needing like a small therapy session to help them move where they're needing to go to. So,
Yeah.
sometimes there is a need for extra support, but there is so much that we can do if we educate ourselves in that way.
And that's why, it's great when you get paranormal groups that go out and do things. Everybody has a particular job, and if you can get all these different people to be able to do all those things, it's great. I'm not part of a paranormal group out here. I've been doing tours, so I've always been solo. I've always been on my own.
Mhm.
And I'm not one to go out and explore, properties on my own because it's unsafe. Not that I'm worried that the spirits are going to, possess me, but what if something happens to me? I fall and break an ankle, or
Well, there's all kinds of stuff. People, vagrants, nefarious things that happen at
100%.
different places. Like I'm sure even with the walking tours, being mindful of where you're going and what the route is, and the time and all that kind of stuff is still super important.
Yeah. There's a couple of paranormal groups up here. I think I've reached out to one or two of them. I've just talked to them, but not like, hey, can I join your group? But I mentioned to one girl, hey, if you guys ever go out, please invite me, because I don't get the opportunity to go out with groups. I do my own group, but it would be fun to be part of a bigger actual paranormal group.
Yeah, yeah. You step on a big pile of poo. It's such a mixed bag, though, because I think that we are all very unique with the energies that we bring to things too. So finding the right group and the right group of people that you feel that you can trust and explore with, and so going to meet new people with the high intention, low attachment, just going to have fun tonight, and there's no attachment that this needs to be a long-term relationship.
Right.
Because
I'll never forget
tonight.
When I was in California, the paranormal groups out there, kind of same thing. It was like being in Savannah with all the tours, right? Or a group is better than the other, and they would all bicker about the other. I'm like, who cares? Who cares who gets to hear a spirit voice first in this building? You're just out having fun. We're a community for a reason.
Community.
And so many times that I would tell people, even as a massage therapist, I wouldn't be offended if you saw another therapist, because there's more than one Mexican restaurant in town, right? There's more than one restaurant in town. Maybe one week you want to do Italian, next week you want to do, Mexican food. And the next week, maybe you just want to do burgers. Everyone has something different to offer. It shouldn't be competitive. It should be like, hey, so if you want to get a massage therapist over there, I'm fine. She does a different technique. She does cupping and tapping, and that's fine. Try it. It's exciting. It's fun. I'm not going to be jealous or upset about it, right?
No, Serena's
I'm
saying
down to investigating with you. Hey, great, Serena. We need to get together for sure.
There you go. I think that it finds us when we're needing it as well too. The community, and you sound very similar to me as well too, like creating our community. The tours are your community as well too, because you have that you've created that space for yourself as well too.
And I think for so many Canadians,
right?
That are from all over. When I was in Hollywood, it was like they were from Japan, from Ireland. It was like, that was a huge breath, of fresh air, and getting all that varied, conversation.
Yeah. I think when we talked at breakfast, we had quite a few places that we had investigated or been to that were similar.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Omen House, David.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, Whaley House.
Oh my gosh, where River Phoenix died.
The whiskey.
The Viper Room.
Viper Room.
The Viper Room.
I've never been there. I haven't. Isn't that crazy? I haven't been there.
It was a lot.
That's right. You did.
It was a lot for me, for sure. It was a lot for me. But I prefer those places. Like I wrote down the names of them too, like those little kind of off the beaten path, like the old speakeasies and all those kind of places. I love the layered history to those kind of locations.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have I'm a cemetery girl. Like I love investigating cemeteries.
Really?
I am so drawn to cemeteries. It
Ah.
is I love walking through them. If I'm especially like prior to 2020 was like
Mhm.
between Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, which I don't know if you know our geography very well here in Ontario, but Sault Ste. Marie, which is 9 hours kind of below Thunder Bay, 8 hours below Thunder Bay. So between there and Kingston, closer to Ottawa, for us, like was all over the place, working on its rotation every 6 weeks and all these different places in between. And I would go to cemeteries all the time in between. I could just have my lunch, have my dinner, walk around. So are there places that you're drawn to? Like I think spirits draw us to places. So are there on your tours, have you found places that you are particularly drawn to that really interest you?
I just like the busy hubs because that's where I feel like this was where the energy was. This is where all the people love to conglomerate. And I'm not I tell people, don't go to cemeteries, right? I'm like, that's just where the spirits are resting. You're probably not going to get a lot, but you might have other things to say about that.
Yeah.
And I will never forget, I had a group on my tour that rented an apartment right across from a cemetery. And they had to sign a waiver, knowing fully aware that they were living across from a cemetery. And right away went,
right there, I'd be, here's my money. Where do I sign?
And they said that there was a lot of weird things that would happen in the apartment.
Yeah.
And one day their dog was growling at a doorway. Like he was in his bedroom and there was the frame. The dog was inside the bedroom with him, growling outside into the kitchen. And he took a video of it and the dog was just, and he said, I was the only one in the house. And that dog was spooked. And then it was all of a sudden like the spirit went rah to the dog. Because then you see the dog go and cower and kind of turn back to the guy. And I thought, okay, so maybe my opinions about cemeteries have changed. What if they're portals? What if a spirit passed away in a town that they're not familiar with and they're a John Doe and they don't know where they're at and they're lost?
Yes. Immigrants that came and died without family being here, so no one's grieving them. There's all kinds of people that are buried outside of the boundaries because they were poor or did nefarious things. Like there's all kinds of yes, there's just it's pretty layered. Serena, I agree. Cemeteries for the most part are very peaceful and beautiful, and there's artistry to the older headstones as well too. So we learn a lot about history that way. Martina, I have not been to Halifax. As far as I have been is Moncton. I've been as far as Moncton, New Brunswick. That's as far as I've been, and my daughter was born on the East Coast. So we are wine. Thank you, Howie. I'm glad that you feel it was an amazing show. Thank you so very much. Because we are we do need to close up the show with our timing. That went by really quickly.
Well, doesn't take much, does it?
No, I love it. So where can people find you? In person, we're going to find you October in Thunder Bay. So
yes. So Thunder Bay, the Paracon will be great. If you ever come out to Duluth, definitely come and join me on a tour, Duluth Ghost Tours, and that's Minnesota, not Georgia. So yes, I live on the Great Lakes. So and besides that, so Mystic Wellness Academy, that is where I've been starting my Reiki classes. The website is done. I've been working on building up, and I need to start recording the classes. So soon I will be having online Reiki classes. And then I'll be doing other classes as well, like maybe crystals, or we'll see where it goes from there. And as far as me, the person, it's Kimberly Christine. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and it's _Kimberly_Christine. So if you type up It's Kimberly Christine, you'll probably pop up anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Thank
so
you.
that's where you get to
Thank
see
you.
all that spookiness.
Thank you for being here. And Duluth Tours on Instagram, on YouTube,
Facebook, YouTube.
and
Yep.
fabulous. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you for
everybody that
having me.
participated. Oh my gosh, it was great. We'll have to have you back on again before or after. Maybe we'll do it live from Thunder Bay.
Oh yeah, that would be really cool.
I think it will be fun.
Mhm.
So thank you, everybody that was participating in the chat and your questions and comments. You guys make the show. Thank you so very much. Thank you to the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 in the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM out of beautiful New Orleans. Thank you to Joe Montaldo, our wonderful owner, and Michelle DeRoche, who is our network manager and keeps everybody all in line and doing well. So I appreciate both of you, and thanks for being here. Next week, I have Sam's Pretty Paranormal. Please follow her on YouTube. She does some fun videos over there. Wojo and Richie, if you guys are still listening, Sam is going to be on. Sam is a big supporter of their show as well, too. So if you participate in the chat with them, you're going to see her there as well. So up next is Jeffrey Pritchett with the Church of Mavis. Please take a listen to his show as well. So have a good night, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.